we need to talk about textures, we need to talk about materials. You might import your assets and out of curiosity click here. This is called the material instance. Go to general and click on parent. This is the material. Before we talk about creating materials, I have a surprise for you. I prepared this list with no particular order, starting with architectures.org. If you just want to experiment, you can go to create and you can select a pattern from many presets you have here, and you need Pro for some of them. From the tab here for the normal patterns, create your own textures. Moving to the next item on our list, we have Materialize from Bounding Box Software. This website here is really useful when you have images, whether images you took or you have images from websites that you downloaded and they don't have normal or roughness or metallic or whatever maps, and you want to create them, then you can use this tool. It's totally free, it's open source, it's really good stuff. 3D Sky is a good website for 3D models and textures. It's not free. They will allow you like 3 or whatever few downloads every day, but it's a good website if you want quick textures. We have the 3D community assets from the Substance community, and they upload really cool stuff. You need an account on Adobe website to be able to download, but you can really find interesting assets and materials and shaders that you can download. Just if you're downloading something like this marble titles, you need to have plugin in Unreal Engine to import this. It's the Substance plugin. It will be a topic for later, but yes, this is a good resource as well. We have also 3dtextures.me, and you will see many stylized textures, but I really like the wood textures. There are some really good wood textures here. So yes, this artist makes really cool stylized textures, but also there are some photoreal textures. So let's go to marble, for example, and you can see some really cool marble textures that you can use in your architectural projects. Next on the list, we have FreePBR.com. Here you can find some nice countertops, granite textures, wooden textures. You would click on a texture you like and download for Unreal, Unity. Let's talk about ShareTextures.com. I always use this website. There is 1600 textures, and he recently started uploading 3D models. So there is also ShareTextures. When you go to ShareTextures, you can go to textures. You can select the category you want. So let's say you want to choose some wood. Here we have these recent items. So scroll down to load other textures. And once you find the texture you like, so whether it's cloth or wood, you can simply select the quality you want to download from Google Drive and just click download. Concrete, fabric, floor, ground, plaster, and all that good stuff. I will definitely be using some of the textures here. Now, let's move on to cc0-textures.com. Here we have bark, brick, concrete, fabric, floor, ground, and rock, and so on. Leather, this is good. What about plaster for walls? Looking cool. And let's go to the next item on the list. We have CGAxis. They have a page where you can find 100 free exclusive PPR materials and maybe 3D models, because I didn't see any so far. But if you scroll, this is some really beautiful materials here. If you find something you like, I believe you need to make an account. Yes, you do, but you can download all these. So this is 4K, all the good stuff. Next item on the list is textures.pixfurnace.com. This is also another cool website. You can find different types of materials that you can download and use on your projects. Any type of environment you're building, you are definitely going to find something interesting for your environment and use that as a texture. Next item is TextureFun. I like that name. Here we have our categories, plastic, for example. Oh wow, check this out. Clean plastic texture. Scroll back or go back. Let's select metal. Nice, we have some imperfections and whatnot. Let's select wall. Okay, not that perfect, but it's okay. Wood. Wood is always good. The more wood, the better. Nice, I like this place. TextureFun.com, looking good. We also have cgbookcase.com. If you scroll down, first you can browse the textures and also you can find links to tutorials and whatnot. I like that. And if you like their work, you can support creators with Patreon and other methods. This is truly how I believe the future of individual artists and freelancers will be, where you can take this as a side hobby, provide value for others, and when they are able, they can provide value back to you. Maybe they have a project, they can connect with you. So other artists, especially when they are learning, I remember myself, I was always looking for assets and scenes and materials to find, to look at, to see how it's made, not only use it in my project, but to learn about it. And moving forward, we have Poliigon. This is by the creator of Render Guru. Amazing guy. I love his tutorials. So there are free assets here. I believe also you may need an account, but yeah, this is really good. There are materials, there are candles, microwave. That's so nice. So it's a practice as well for you to take assets that are made for program that you don't use, especially Blender. It's worth it. Learning Blender is worth it. They have amazing community and you can find so many amazing assets. Speaking of Blender, the next website here is BlenderKit. This is a plugin that you can download on Blender, and then here they have a big library of free materials and free assets that you can also download with the free plan and make good use of. Then export these as JLTF to Unreal or FBX to Unreal. Good stuff. Next website is textures.com. This is a classic. You also need an account for this one. They give you like 15 credits every day. First, can we just type free? Yes, we can. Yeah, there we go. There are many cool free assets, and remember, depending on the quality you download, and there is a tutorial where I download the facade of a building, for example. So this is not 100% a texture. These are textures here, but this is just an image. So these here, they give you 15 credits every day, and you can download depending on whatever quality you want. I love these type of images because you can model on top of them in Unreal or Blender and build an environment real quick. This is why I wanted to include this website. You can try to find whatever surface textures they have for free, but really, if you want to make the best of this website, is to find the facades and some other interesting textures that can add value to your environment. It looks like we're coming to the final item on our list, which is AmbientCG. Here we have 2,473 assets as the time of recording this, and all of these are CC0. You can download them, use them in your commercial. You can select any texture you like, download it, and under here we have materials, tiles, dark. You can add tags for your search. See if we don't have tiles, hexagon, tiles. Very cool. I just wanted to double check if I mentioned Textures Haven, Polyhaven, the textures part. This is an amazing resource, and they also have HDRIs. From here, I download all my HDRI images to put on my skylight in Unreal and experiment with different lighting scenarios. And they also have some really cool models that you can download in any 3D program. If you know any other good resources where we can download things from and help us with our projects, don't hesitate to share that in the comments with others so we all help each other here. Let's keep going. Okay, so when you download some textures, in my case, I downloaded some from CC0 textures and few from ShareTextures. For now, I will work with the wooden parquet, so I will right-click, extract it, but I will just open it and extract it like so. And now I will open the folder, and here you're going to find images. Now, if you're a complete beginner, when it comes to creating materials, PPR materials, physically based rendered materials, we need mainly, at least to start with, 4 or 3 inputs. And these inputs are the base color, the metallic, the roughness, and the specular. Normal, we don't really need this, but it will add the surface detail. So let's import our assets. So I'm gonna press Ctrl space and I will go find a good location to import this. And if you want to start building your master library, for example, you can type your initials, then MP, this is like the marketplace, and here I can type textures or materials. So let's type it as materials. And here I will right click to create something called textures, and let's create another folder and call it master materials. Under textures, let's create a folder for our wood. Parquet texture 19 is preferred to take the exact same name so it's easier to find later. And let's say you have categories for wood, for glass, for any other types, you can do that. But for now, we're gonna keep it like this. So let's select all these except for this and this, we don't want them. And this is also black, it does mean nothing. Metallic will define whether our object is metallic, does it transmit electricity, or no, it's non-metallic. When we import our textures, they will import like so. And this VT, it means virtual textures are enabled. And this is also enabled by default as an option, optimization option, all Unreal projects. If you don't have something like this, you can enable it. Your projects will run better from the project settings. And if you search for virtual textures. So enable virtual texture support. If you plan to bake lights, you can enable it for light maps as well. So enable these three here and you should be good. So now we imported our assets. Before we create our material, let's just take a look at a few things a little bit. Open this and this will open the texture editor for us. From here, you can see we have 3 channels. So all textures in Unreal Engine comes in 3 channels, or like RGB, red, green, and blue. When we want later to modify these textures or create our own materials, we will basically manipulate these channels by math. Add, multiply, subtract, and so on. So we have 3 channels on any image we open. It's possible to store multiple images in multiple channels. That's what you will see in 3D assets, for example, when we bake the textures. So the most common types of assets usually you can import are these, and for uncompressed, where you can even preserve the layers and the highest quality. And you can also import PNG, JPEG, high dynamic range images, and many more. So what you need to keep in mind is you need to do your best to keep your texture size by the power of 2. And that goes from 16 by 16 all the way to 8K. 8K is the maximum texture size we can import in Unreal. Usually for me, for most projects, we use 2K, 4K maximum, 8K. Of course, with virtual texturing, it's much better, but unless you're going for full cinematics, then try to always go with less, save on your texture memory, because textures usually are the biggest things in any project. They take massive size, massive memory size. So the more you can streamline them, the smaller you make them, the better it is. Now, let's say your textures, or some of them, not have the power of 2. They cannot be 256 by 256 or 512 by 512. They have to be 2 different numbers. The reason you want to maintain such numbers, 16, 200, 128, or 512 by 1024, they still have the power of 2. These are all important because of something called MIP maps. You can think of it as level of quality for textures. MIP maps will not work as intended if we don't have our textures as the power of 2. So just keep that in mind. Now, to create our material, let's press Ctrl space, right click one of the textures we have and create a material, or simply right click and create a material. Let's call it _mm, for example, base wood or just base material, and let's open it. Let's bring our textures. To bring in the textures we got, we press Ctrl space, click on one of them, then press Shift and select all of them like so. Click and drag, and we will have 4 texture samples, like so. So we can organize them like this. The base color can go to the top, so we can put it on the top. And initially what we have here, we have the material editor. When we press Ctrl space to create a material asset, double click, it will open the material editor. You have inputs and outputs. And when you connect the outputs, so here we have the base color to the base color, and look at the preview here. Something is off with my render, so let me just find a nice angle. Let's save this and let's apply it on our floor. So that's a bug. For now, I think to avoid this bug, I will click on my textures and I will disable virtual textures. So you can do that by going to convert VT to regular texture. Click on OK, and let's save. Open this here again. We might need to deselect this and connect it again. Now it looks fine. So save this. As we were saying, we have inputs and outputs, and when we connect the inputs and the outputs, we get material. We have the material, the working space here. You can scroll up and down to zoom in and out. You can right click to move around, and you can select multiple assets by left clicking. Right click to pan the view, scroll to zoom in and out, and if you want to scroll more, you can hold Ctrl and scroll even more. Now here we have the preview. Here we have the main details of our material. Now, just in case maybe you're selecting this or anything else, just select the output node here or just click anywhere outside. You're gonna see your material properties. Material domain, the default is surface, and just so you know, within the material editor, you can create more than surfaces. You can create post-process materials, you can create decals, you can create light functions. Now, keep it on surface. Under that, we have blend mode, opaque is the default. We can set masked if we have a plant, for example, translucent if we want to create some glass materials. So we're gonna take a look at these as we go later. Shading model, you can change the shading model. So if you were creating something for meta-humans or any human, you have an eye shader or hair shader. If you're creating a curtain or some special cloth material, you can set cloth and it will change some settings here, and based on what you're creating it will change the inputs, enable them or disable them. So if you want to create a simple emissive material, we can go to shading model and select unlit, and it will just have emissive enabled for us. Let's switch back to default let and let's pipe these where they should be. So if you select a texture, you have roughness, you can connect roughness like so. Normal, you can connect it to the normal, and ambient occlusion. And notice once we connected the normal, what happened. So ambient occlusion, you can connect it also like this. Now let's go here and let's find our material, and we can assign our material like this, which is fine. However, no, actually it's not fine. What I prefer that we do is right click our material and create the material instance. Just name this MI to be material instance, and let's call this wood variant or just V1, whatever. So this is our material. Now click and drag like this, and let's say this is cool. Now, let's say this is not enough. You want more. And I say, okay, no problem. Let's first go back to our material here. Let's say you want to make this brighter. You can do that by adding a power node. So let's right click and type power and connect the RGB here to the base. Press 1 and hold, then just left click once, you're gonna add this. As long as you hold and click, you can add these nodes. Press on 1 here, you can connect it, and then you can change the value to whatever you like. Now here, this value, you can right click and convert this to parameter, and we can say power. So now this and this, if you connect it and you set it to 1, the default value, nothing changes. So let's open our material instance and notice, do you remember this? We called it power. If you go here, you're gonna see a new setting here, and here we have power. So now you can change to make this more cool. So you can try so many nodes. We will talk about them slowly as we go. Now let's open this again, and let's say we want to control the reflections. No problem. Let's press on L to add a lerp node. So you can right click and search for lerp node, linear interpolate, and we will connect the alpha to one of the channels here. Let's take one channel because they are all the exact same. For the A and B, we can press 1, and convert these to parameters, but no. Hold S and click, it will add a parameter, and it's exactly like this. So this, for example, can be called roughness A, and this can be called roughness B. And they are both at 0, 1. So let's say this is 1, and let's say this is 0. And now let's connect this here. So if you save, if you open the material instance, and you try to change these values. So 1 if you reduce it or increase it. It's interesting. So put it to 1. 0 if you increase it or decrease it. If you set it from 0 to 0.2, we can see now the texture is like now. Nice. So this is how you add textures, add controls to these textures, and connect them like this. Now it's a really good practice to keep things organized, so you can select a group of textures or nodes like this and press on C to comment. So we can say this albedo color or just color, and this we can say roughness, and these can be talked about later. And let's save this and let's keep going. So let's say our next texture is the wall and the ceiling. It's a very big area that we can cover. So I already have one from ShareTextures.com. I downloaded a plaster wall. I will copy the name. I will go to Unreal Engine. We'll go back one step, create folder with this, and let's put the images here. Let's open our file, select the images I want. So let's say ambient occlusion, normal, roughness, and the base color. You can drag, put here, and that's good. Now, if you was a beginner or if you was me when I first started learning Unreal, I would create another material and copy the same settings from that material. By doing this, right, take these, go here, paste again. And this is something why I don't use DataFMeth to export my textures. I prefer to use DataFMeth to export just my geometry, and I have all my materials pre-created in Unreal. You will understand why later as we go. Now, if you're doing this, press Ctrl C from here and then press Ctrl V and connect, then create another material instance and whatnot. That's wrong. That's why we have what we call a master material. So under your materials here, so let's say this folder contains your materials, master materials. This is empty. This is where we've made our material, base material. We can click and drag this material here, first of all. Second, ideally, we should replace these images with placeholders like this grid, for example, that I had somewhere else. So here I have this grid and I have placeholder textures for the normal, the roughness, the base color and whatnot. In my master material, it does not represent wood or metal or anything. It just represents the base, opaque surface, something that's solid. It might be a plastic, it might be a wall, it might be a floor. Something that is not translucent. So that's a master material. If you want to create something that's translucent, then we need to create another master material and set the blend mode to translucent. But when it comes to creating now the wall texture that we want here, all we need to do is to find the parent material. So this is the parent material, and we need to click on the texture sample here, right click and convert this to parameter, and we can call this base color. We can click on our roughness, right click, do the same, convert to parameter and call it roughness. This here we can call it normal, convert to parameter, then let's call it normal, and this here let's call it ambient occlusion or AO. Now if you save this and check out the material instance here, you're gonna see another setting called global texture parameter values. To be honest, this is not very helpful. We're gonna fix it, but if you click here, you're gonna see our textures. So here's how we fix this and this as well if you want, and I definitely recommend you doing that. Select the textures or anything that is a parameter, and where it says group, you can define this. So let's say textures. So these other values here, we can set them in their own groups as well. So here, for example, these two, just the roughness, and this here, we can call it color, and let's save. And if you open the material instance, you're gonna see color, roughness, textures, which is very good. You can change the order of these items here. For example, base color should be 1. So if you go here all the way and select base color, and let's say this is set to 1, click save, go back to the material, you're gonna see this is here on the top, which is what we want. Here, if this is number 2, we can set it to number 2. Maybe you would do, let's say 10, 20, 30, 40. As a start, hear me out, because if you wanted to add other textures, maybe you forgot the number, you can add something between 30 and 40. So you can always add things in between. Now, this is not final. I will keep improving this master material as we go, so we learn Unreal together. But yes, now let's check this out. They are in the order we wanted them to be. Now, let's go back and let's make a duplicate of this. That's all what we need to do. Whether right click and create a duplicate or press on the shortcut Ctrl D. move this duplicate to the plaster folder or any folder you've made and press F2 to rename this, and let's call this wall plaster, for example. Open this. Now check these because we want to change them. Press Ctrl space, change the base color to the base color, the normal to normal, the roughness, ambient occlusion. Save it, save everything. Now let's select the walls and let's change the material here. So I will select this material we've made and assign it like so. Now let's say you want to change the scale. Let's do that. To do that, we need to open our master material, and where we have UVs, we need to change the scale here. I will press U and press with the left mouse button to add a texture coordinates node. This is how we change our UVs. Here you can see we have U tiling and V tiling. I will press on S to add a scalar node, and I will call it scale or texture scale. Now we need to set it to value of 1, not 0, because we need to add a multiply node. So if you hold M and click with the left mouse button, this is a node that will multiply value with another. So if you multiply anything with 0, it will be 0. So let's set this here, for example, and it's the exact same. Now there is nothing to see, but if you set this to 1, now what if we set it to 6? We have more tiling. Perfect. So if you want, you can write the name of the group, or you can click and select a specific group. So I will set this to color. Later we're gonna name this to general settings or something. I will save this now, and I will open this material instance, and I will go to where we have texture scale and reduce this number or increase it. Beautiful. So let's say 0.5. We can also select the ceilings and assign it. I will assign it on all my ceiling parts here, and then I can replace things later. There we go. Look at this, beautiful. Now let's say we are not happy with the scale of the floor. You can also open the material instance and change the texture scale from here. I like to call it just texture scale, not textures. I will remove this S later, and let's change this to 0.5 or 0.7. In the next part, we will discuss how we can rotate this. So you're definitely wondering, how do we do it? Don't worry, I got you. This is the master material we made so far. It has the albedo, the roughness, the normal, and the ambient occlusion. So what we need to add in order to rotate our textures is a custom rotator node or function. So let's right click and search for custom rotator under texturing. And if you don't want to right click and search, you can also click on the palette or pin it. And if you are a beginner, I recommend doing this and quickly seeing what's here, especially with what have a shortcut. Whenever you see a shortcut, take a step, multiply, lerp, if, divide, and all that good stuff. Speaking of divide, we need to add that here actually. And we need to divide by minus 360, just for this scenario here. Press on Alt and click here to disable the connection, or press on Ctrl and click to move the connection here, and move this here and click and drag to set the UVs here, because this is how this material function works. Like this into the material function. Now we want to create another scalar parameter. So let's press on S, hold, press with the left mouse button, and add that scalar parameter, and let's call this rotate or texture rotate. And speaking of just one texture, click this here, and now you can make it a habit every time you add a new texture or a new node, you can click and set the group of that node. So in this case it's set color, but no, we want to set something like general. So set this and let's say general. Now connect this here, save. And if we go back to our scene and open our material instance, let's find general and click on texture rotate, and you can now rotate. This will rotate by 90 degrees if you want, or 180, 0, ping no. So here we can call it rotate and scale. We can add something later for the offset of the texture if we want to improve on our master material. For now, let's see how things are. That's the texture rotation. Let's say you want 45 degrees. You write 45 and you should be good. Switch to let. Let's say we're not happy. Minus 45. And now I'm happy. Let's say we still want to use the exact same master material, but now to create some metallic materials. I have good news, we can do that. But first, let me quickly add a post-process volume just to disable the lens flare. So we already have one. Let me set the intensity of lens flare to 0. And now let's find our master material, this one. Right click and create a new material instance. Let's call this mi underscore metal or steel, anything. Now, if you open this, there is no way we can turn this into a metallic material yet. So let's open the master material again and let's talk about switchers. So let's press on 3. This will add a color. So let's say the first thing I'd like to do with my material is to just simply have a color, right? If you click on your right mouse button and search for static switch, we need to ensure it's under parameters, static switch parameter. And here you can set it, for example, use color and set the color to true and set the texture to false and keep the default value to false. And now let's connect this here. Technically nothing changed because it's exactly as it is. Now we can save this to test it, and this is our metallic object. We can find under global static switch so we can later organize all these. Click on use color and now let's enable this. Notice we lost the texture. There is no albedo texture anymore, but now we have the color. We still need to make it into a parameter. So let's open the master material. We can right click and convert this into a parameter. And let's say, for example, base color. Let's set it to general, for example. And let's say base color. Now, if you go back, go here, we're gonna see base color. So let's go back to the master material. Let's check metallic. Is there anything here? No. So we can press on S and simply add metallic. Type metallic, set it on 0, the default value. Roughness, we can also have the ability to switch the texture or change the color. So let's use similar node. I will right click and search for switch parameter. So we're gonna find static switch parameter and type use roughness color. So we avoid overlaps. Set it to false, and here I will set this roughness, a normal value. It's not a color technically, it's something else, but use roughness. Let's say use simple, just simple roughness, okay? So this is value switch. Let's select our other switch and set it to the same group switch and connect this here. We should be good. With the normal map, we simply need search for a function called flatten normal, and the flatness between two brackets here we have S for scalar, so add a scalar parameter and type flatten normal. The higher this value, the more flat the normal will be. Connect this here. As for the ambient occlusion part here, for this texture I don't even need AO. What I wanted to say, you can find an image or create an image with a white value or anything and then replace that image here as a placeholder when you don't want to use ambient occlusion. But what is easier for us now is to just work with 4 parameters. We have metallic, base color, roughness and normal. That's enough. Save this and let's keep going. Let's click on our material object. So let's save all. Let's open our material here. So the base color, the switch, the flat normal. We want simple roughness, so we don't want any of that. And in terms of the normal, we want to make it flat. So if we set it to a value of 1, now we should be good. All right. Metallic, if you set this to 1 as well, you can see this is getting chrome roughness. If you reduce the roughness, you can see the closer you get to 0, the more perfect this is. And the more you get away from 0, you get to 1, the more rough the surface will be. So let's say a value of 0.35, for example. Click Ctrl-Shift-S to save. And now let's select our frames here. So select the frames and this one, metal. Click and replace noise. Click on this frame. There we go. Let's say you're not fan of this. You want some other color? No problem. Go to base color and play with that here. So you can go to dark, really dark metal here. This is awesome. So in the next stage, we will take care of this area. So let's keep going. So there is a nice wood texture I found on CC0 textures, and I already changed the textures here and reset the material to default. Let's say I want to assign it on my kitchen. When you're exploring your project and you have your word outliner like this, whenever you select an object you want to change and the nearest objects have the similar name, it will be very easy to select these objects, select the materials you want to assign, and simply change that materials. Let's say I want to select this glass so we can have nice light. Do the same here. And let's say, hey, maybe we can test this on the door. And so let's add the wall plaster for the frame. So we have a minimal wall design, door design. And it seems that we need to fix the material IDs later. So that's for later. That's okay. We need to find a material for the marble. That's also okay. So let's open the material instance. And let's say, hey, we want to improve on the settings here. We want the ability to tile it or to scale it on the X and Y individually, or U and V, and also to do some offset. So let's do this by opening the master material. And here is our custom rotator. Here is our texture coordinates, scale, texture rotate, all that good stuff. Now I will connect this directly here. I will remove this for now. And then since we have UVs, V2, so it's a UV, we need to break this out to two components. So if you type breakout float two components, we get two floats RG and they represent UV. So let's say you want to change the scale separately. Now we add a multiply node for the R and multiply node for the G. So that's UV. And then we can hold S to add a scalar parameter. And let's say tiling on the U. Do that again, tiling on the V. And let's add it 1 and change the default value here to 1. Now, that's good. Let's set this here a little far. And let's press C to add a comment. And by the way, if you didn't see this before, this is the reroute node. When you right click and type reroute node, you can connect it and keep things organized, just like this, as a placeholder. This is here for tiling UV. Let's say we want to also add offset. And to do that, we need to add an add node. So let's do that. From here, drag and search for add. Do the same here, search for add. Copy this, connect it here. Now, it's important to... I'm trying to keep things organized, by the way. Now, we can append these. So this is a node you need to learn. To bring things together is to append them together. So search for append vector. A and B, bring them together like this. And click on save. Let's name this here to offset as well. And this here, rotation. Now it's possible to collapse this into a node that we call a material function. We will do that in future. For now, let's just keep moving forward and let's just test this. So let's open our material instance. And here we have our values here. So these values, we can select all of them and we can set them all to general. For example, save. We can change their priorities. For now, I'm going to do it later. I will show you once we do it. So offset, offset, tiling, tiling. If I enable offset on the U and change it, offset on the V, that's amazing. Let's say tiling, we want thicker wood. Can do that individually or just like this. Maybe that's too much. Yeah, set this to the default. It's amazing. So now you know. Yeah, I like this. Maybe it's too much. Yes. All right. If we go back to our material here, let's just call this also UV. And some part of me cannot stand this here. So let me find the granite or something material, marble or something cool. On cc0-textures.com, we have these marble textures. If you search for anything you want, you can find cool stuff. And oh wow, this is a nice floor. I definitely want to check it out. Let's say for our kitchen, we want something that is light. Let's go with this. Download, set a location. We'll make a new folder, call it marble. Save it, give it a few seconds. Let's unzip our file, copy the name, press Ctrl space, go to where we have the textures, the temp file for the textures, and let's import these. So I noticed that multiple marble textures I found online don't have power of 2. Sometimes that's okay. So let's let this pass and let's save this. Now we can locate our master material like this. It will locate or open the content browser for us. We can right click, create a material instance and type it mi marble. And let's move it next to our new texture. I think it's here. Yes. So press Ctrl space and let's replace these textures here. So we need the color. Oh, here's the color. And here is the reflection. No, this is the AO. This is the roughness. We need the normal and we need the specular or reflection. Let's save this. Now this is specular. It should be roughness. So maybe this should be inverted. We can change that within the settings here. But let's assign it on our asset here. And let's take a look with what I mean. If you feel this is too much, you can always go to the roughness settings we did earlier and play with the settings here. I feel the normal map is off. I'm not sure about it. Now this is a scenario where maybe the offset is useful. So offset on the U and the Y. There we go. Okay. Let's open our master material to do some few final improvements. Let's save everything first and let's go here. So use color, base color, keep it like this. From here, let's expand the albedo area a little bit and let's do some quick small changes. Any image with value more than 1, it will be brighter, and with value less than 1, it will be less bright. So this is brightness. And now let's connect this here and let's click on save. Let's move this, keep it little organized. So keep some space, that's fine. This is the normal area. So let's select all these here and let's call them UVs. And let's set the group here to UVs. The texture rotation can be the first value or the fifth. Tiling on the U can be number 2. This can be number 30. So as we mentioned earlier, 20. Tiling here, 20, 30, 40, and 50, 4 and 5. These settings here, these two, can be under general. They will affect the base color. So we can call them albedo controls. And this here, instead of UVs, we can call them UV controls. Yeah, UVs control, that sounds good. These two here, roughness controls. So for naming consistency and normal control or control like this. Save it. This metallic here can be under general. Save it again. Now you need to change the priorities based to your liking. For me, I'm just trying to keep this short. I think we covered a couple of important topics, tricks. There is endless things we can talk about in materials and we would never finish. And I will see you as we go.